Hey, so welcome. I am finally back in my studio, and I'm really excited today because, yeah, I'm going to be starting a new pair of shoes. So those of you that joined me for my HKS livery, I am starting on another race car livery, and it is a collaboration between myself and my husband. And I will preface everything with that he is by far the sneakerhead as well as the car person. However, I have learned so much from him and gleaned so much from him over the years regarding cars and car culture that I have fallen in love with it as well. I still need him usually as my encyclopedia of information. But yeah, I have a real love for racing and cars in general, and just the overall experience and feeling of being in a sports car and driving one. It's really fun, as well as, I guess, sneakers. So I don't have a background in kind of being a sneakerhead or sneaker culture. Again, my husband is very, definitely part of his roots. In fact, he made a great YouTube video on it. I will link that in the description below if you're interested in watching. But yeah, so this collaborative project of the spoon livery on a shoe really came from collaboration. So I wanted to start out by just sharing kind of the overall process that these shoes have gone through, kind of where the concept is coming from, where the inspiration is coming from, and just walk you through that, and then I'll get started today. However, I first want to start by reading a quote. So I want to thank you so much for joining me. And I really started this YouTube channel because as somebody who's creative, I struggle to show up for myself. I struggle to just give myself the time and space to create, as well as to let go of like the little voice on the side that says, oh, what you want to focus on isn't popular, or it isn't trendy, or that's not really worth your time. And just all the outside influences that happen that tend to dictate where I spend my energy, rather than looking inward and just kind of focusing where I need to focus, being playful, and then just showing up for myself. So that's really the part of why I started this channel. And so I wanted to read a quote from a book called The Artist's Way. And if you're a creative and you have not read this book, I definitely would recommend it. And it's by Julia Cameron. So it's called The Artist's Way, and I would like to open with reading this quote. At the heart of artistic avoidance is the denial of process. We like to focus on having learned a skill or having made an artwork. This attention to final form ignores that creativity lies not in the done, but in the doing. And I wanted to start with that because I have recently been made aware that art is a practice. And so that's why I wanted to share that, because I have to be constantly reminding myself that my art and what I show up to do is a practice. It's never going to be perfected. A lot of the times I make mistakes, but that's part of creativity. It's doing, and it's the problem solving. So yeah, I hope you enjoy following along, asking me questions as to what I'm doing. But yeah, let's get started, and let me kind of share with you the inspiration behind where we started. So, Spoon Sports, the Honda Spoon Blue. So this is, anybody that knows car culture, this is really where it kind of all started and the inspiration for the design. So this is one of the cars that kind of gives all the different angles and the different views of the livery that is the inspiration behind this shoe. And yeah, you can kind of see it starts from the front and this splatter moves to the back. It's a really dynamic design, and I think my husband was just thinking like, man, this would be really cool on a shoe. So yeah, these are just the different angles to give you a sense of the livery. And of course, like, it can be on a much sportier car. I mean, it's been on all different kinds of cars, and I think this is a good example of like a very like sporty car. I love the the really shiny blue on the hood. So you'll see this definitely referenced in the very first shoe we made. So this was the original concept. This was done on PowerPoint by my husband in his collaborative effort. So it was using the Air Jordan 1 as a base, specifically in this colorway. This was the first shoe I had done as a custom, so there was a lot of learning. So this was like the first concept of the design, as well as this one, kind of playing around with what it would look like. I think it really does help to visualize. And so my husband just presented this. He's like, hey, I have this idea. Do you think you could like paint a shoe this way? And so I watched some of the painting videos. Angelus paints with Angelus leather, and like their paints specifically. I watched a lot of stuff on their channel and like custom shoes. And then I got started. So I got started making a shoe. They're actually here behind me that you can see. So a lot of things that I learned was just like having a dark base made me end up having to use a lot of paint. I didn't have a way to make stencils yet, so I ended up just making the stencil kind of in reverse the best I could, freeform with tape. And then I ended up just hand painting everything. So that is some close-ups. I hand painted in the Air Jordan symbol on the high part of the cuff or the ankle. And yeah, and then you can see here the bright blue on the shoe box, on the top of the toe box, kind of referenced that photo of like the really shiny blue of the one particular race car with that livery. And then this was the final images and some photos we took. We actually ended up taking it to the track. I will link, the person who actually owns this particular Honda is somebody that we know that we've met before. So I will link their Instagram channel or their Instagram handle in the comments when I'm done with the video, and also for anybody watching the playback. And then it was really cool. There were some people there who had like the Spoon Sport jacket. And so it was really fun to like wear them on the track and kind of show them off and like talk with people. So that was really cool. And then here is the shoe itself. So let's see, let me back to, so this is the shoe itself. You can see like this was the first prototype, but what we learned is just like, because I had to go from a dark to a light base, it ended up just having so much paint that we don't really wear these, because if we wear them, it'll really crack, and you can kind of like see the cracking already happening here just because of the quality of this particular shoe and its leather, but also the amount of paint in order to have covered that. But yeah, that was the first shoe, and we had a good time. And so then we maybe a year ago, we were in Den Bosch, which is in the Netherlands. It's in the south of the Netherlands. And there is the Den Bosch Design Museum, and they were having this exhibition called Sneakers Unboxed. And we went, and there were so many sneakers that you got to see, and it was a really cool exhibit. I have the link to the website in both Dutch as well as in English. It's no longer on show, but if it travels anywhere, I would definitely say go see it. But also just like super interesting. I don't think there was a book catalog, but you can check out the website, and it really gave a cool history of sneakers as well, and like sneaker culture, as well as like how sneaker culture has developed in the Netherlands and with the Dutch. So that was really cool. And you can kind of see in like the far background over here that there's like a set of Fear of Gods. And so we were there, and I think at the time, maybe we were painting another set of HKS shoes. And I saw them, my husband's like, oh my gosh, these Fear of Gods, they're so amazing. And I looked at them, and these just so happened to be yellow. And I had just started learning how to embroider. And so I saw them and I was like, oh, they have fabric. I bet you I can embroider those. I bet you those would look cool as like the spoon livery. And he's like, really? So that's really where that design came from. So the next thing I know, he is procuring a pair of Fear of God shoes, which are on, oh God, I'm opposite on this side. So he did procure a pair of those for me to embroider, but then I have sat on this pair of shoes for a while now, because I think it just was like the juices of like, how do I go about doing this? Because as soon as I saw the actual shoe and got to have my hands on it, what I noticed is that, here, let me go. So what I noticed is that this has like a mesh, and I originally thought, okay, well, just to recreate what I did, like this would all be blue. But when I finally got it, like this is like a neoprene. And playing around a little bit with more embroidery, like I don't think I'm gonna be able to like really embroider this so it looks good, as well as like get my hand in there, and it's just not gonna look good. So I had to really sit on it for a while to think like, well, how do I take the livery and turn it into something that would work on this particular shoe? So that's kind of where the embroidery and the spoon on the Fear of Gods kind of came from. Yeah, so the Fear of Gods, okay, well, how do I mesh these two, right? Because like I mentioned the toe, how does that look? So after some thinking, where I've come up with here before I get started is this is kind of, I took this a photo of the shoe and I put it into Photoshop and I just kind of added this. And so what I'm thinking is to do like a reverse kind of spoof. So instead of thinking of the shoe as though like the shoe is a car and this is the hood of the car going back to the tail of the car, like let me just reference the livery of the spoon on this shoe that works best with the shoe's design. And what I really like, as you can see, is like I really like that there is this plastic, like rubberized almost structure that almost to me like references the design here of like how the paint cuts in and out. And so I was like, okay, if I use that, then, and if I start the blue from here, I can kind of create that look, but then it also feels pretty authentic to the Fear of Gods. And then in here, you know, putting something for the 95. So I will actually embroider. So what you see here is kind of like my basic sketch for my embroidery. Yeah, so that is where we are at. So yeah, thanks for joining in. Let me know if you have any questions. And I guess we'll just get started. I don't really know. I'm really not sure if how it's gonna go regarding like, is it gonna be successful? Is it not gonna be successful? And is it not gonna look good? Like, I don't know. And I think that's kind of one of the fun things and one of the reasons why I want to show up, because it's like, this is what happens when I start to work. It's just, I have an idea and then you see, well, let's see if we can make this work. Let me see if this is something that I can make happen, right? So I guess apologies in advance if it doesn't end up looking good, or if I mess up, or I get frustrated, like all those things that normally does happen in the creative process. So I guess you'll be along for the ride. So I am, like I said, I'm going to be embroidering. So let me just go over some of the basic embroidery supplies that I am using. So I have 3 different colors of floss, and that's what we call the string that we embroider with. I'm using the DMC, which is a very standard, like this is kind of like the standard in embroidery if you want like a good embroidery floss and everything like that. So I have a kind of like a royal blue, I have black, and I have white. So these will be reserved for the number area. And then the blue is what I'm going to do, of course, the majority of the embroidery with. So those are the floss that I'm using. I also have some curved needles. So typically when you embroider, or I can show you my first embroidery. This was the first thing that I embroidered as I was learning. And so typically I'm sure you see like it's on a hoop and it's like a fabric. And this is kind of like where it lives, where it stays. You don't really take it off the hoop. You kind of would make this look nice, and then that's your thing that you hang on the wall or whatever. Maybe you embroider clothing or pillows. But this is a very taut surface. So normally you go through and you're kind of going through the back, and so this back actually looks pretty good, but sometimes it can get really messy and everything like that. But I'm not going to be going through all the way. So I've taken a look at the shoe, and the shoe itself has like this kind of lining on the inside, but there's separation between, you can see as I'm pulling it apart, like there's separation between these two. So my goal and my plan is to basically embroider and just use the holes that are part of this mesh, and that's what I'm going to be going through. So it's definitely a different fabric, it's not taut, and that is going to influence the pattern and like the stitch that I do. But because of that, I need a curved needle. Typically you use an embroidery needle for the size of the number of strings of floss. I'll get into that in a second. So yeah, I have a couple different curved needles that I'm going to be using depending on like the angle I need to get in. So I'm just going to take these guys out. I bought some packs that have different sizes. I guess I have a lot more. I forgot that I kept buying. That always happens. So I'll just set those out. So I have a couple different needles that are curved, as well as I have this pack. I feel like this pack is actually good because it's a little less hooked. Like it's a little less hooked, the hook's a little bit wider. So I'm just gonna take these all out and we'll see what they look like and which one is gonna be best. Okay. So I think my plan today is I am gonna start in this section because I don't have to draw anything out because I am going to end up having to freehand draw where I want this pattern to go based on the design that I have. So I have to hand draw that out. So if I focus here and just this square stitching it, that'll get me used to it. So that's where I'm going to start. So I mentioned the floss. So floss is made up of a total of 6 individual strands. I don't know if you can see that. So within this whole strand, like there's 6 of them, and you can embroider with just 1, you can embroider with 3, 2, like as many as you want. Because of the size of this, I don't think I want to do a full 6 because I also want it to look smooth, right? Like, so with an embroidery, like with a I'm planning on doing a satin stitch. I should have had examples, so I'll bring that in on the next stream. But I'm doing a satin stitch, and the more threads that are in that stitch, the chunkier it looks, and I want it to look smooth because I want to mimic the paint of a car and how like a car is very smooth and the paint job is like super smooth and sleek and all of that. And plus I want it to feel like it's that paint that's, you know, like the car's driving fast and it looks like there was this big blue wall, right? Like if we go back to it, you know, like it's almost like, hey, there's this big blue wall of paint and then I go through it like it's a waterfall and it splashes on my car and it like covers the tip and it just, I don't know, that's what I imagine. Crazy, but that's what I imagine when I think of, like when I saw that livery. So I want that smoothness. So I'm gonna work in strands that are about the length of my arm. I don't want it to be too long, just because then you'll get knots and stuff like that. So I'm gonna cut 1, and I'll cut 2, and then I'm gonna separate these. That's probably about all I'm going to get through today. And then I'm going to separate these thicker flosses into 2. Sorry, I'm not doing that on camera. I had to get a little close for these eyes. So it is separated. So I have floss of 3. I have a floss of 3. And then I'm going to do the same here. I guess I already had my counter on for 20 minutes. I have a 20-minute timer on because that kind of is like, okay, I've been going for 20 minutes and then maybe take a break and then go again. Something I'm trying out. If you don't like it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just leave it there. Okay, so let's start it. Okay. I'm just testing which needle I think I want to start out with. I like this needle a little bit more. Reason being is that the eye hole for the thread is a little bit smaller. So overall, the size of this is going through the native hole of the mesh more easily than the other one. So I'm going to start out with this one and see if this does the job. If I find it too hard, this one looks, I like this. Okay. I like these. If you've never used them before, they make threading your yarn a lot easier. I want everything to go. I'm gonna start on the inside versus the outside just because I feel like it's the safest spot to start. And I know based on my image, which I should be putting that up, but everything's kind of at like a 45 angle. So really, I'm just gonna follow like these lines and how they point and use these lines to guide the direction of the stitch. One. So typically I would knot it in the back, but I'm gonna have to knot it and then cover it. So like stitch it in because I'm not working with the back, I'm only working on the front. So. I'm just doing a square knot because it's kind of the knot that I know and I think it'll be okay. Embroidery really is a very slow and I can think process, so I apologize in advance if this is super boring. I also realized that my light is kind of low, so next week when I stream, I will do better about having a better light to be able to see what I'm doing. Plus, I think I'm gonna need better light for myself to see, so. Probably turn on.
Download je meditatievideo's en ontspan zonder onderbrekingen. Probeer YouTube Premium kosteloos.
Might help just a little. Oh, I can tell this is gonna be like crocheting a really big blanket. It's gonna take a long time. Oh, this reminds me, when I first started crocheting, I started out with, you know, a hot pad and then onto scarves. And then I was like, oh, I've learned enough. I'm gonna make a blanket, a super lacy blanket to go for like this art piece I wanted to do. It was quite the, it was quite the, quite the project to take on when you just learn something. Put it that way. So, I want to get a really clean start, and so what I'm dealing with right now is how many of these little holes and I go through with this needle, as well as like kind of how it functions. It's really just a feel thing, but I'm also dealing with the stitching back here and how it kind of is going around the edge in terms of the construction of the shoe itself. I'm not cutting these off yet because I think I'm just going to try to bury them. Like, I don't quite know what I'm going to do with them. You know what I could do? I could grab a piece of tape. I could grab a piece of masking tape and like tape it down so it's not in my way. That will be helpful. There we go. Take that out of the way. Okay. I've got all of 4 stitches in here. Hope you can see.
Samen kunnen we de verspreiding van misleidende informatie tegengaan. Ontdek meer op youtube.com/hitpodnl.
So I can get through with this curved needle and kind of in general, I can get through maybe four holes is what I'm doing, but I think that's going to be good because something that I was thinking about as I was kind of problem solving how is this going to work, is like, as normally embroidery, at least a lot of the stuff you'll see on YouTube, it's not on clothing, it's not on something that moves. Maybe I need to watch more tutorials on embroidering on something that is a moving fabric. But like on a shoe, if I try to do a very long satin stitch, meaning like it's, you know, X amount of centimeters and everything like that, then as the shoe moves, like those strings are going to separate and it's not going to stay tight like you would want it to stay tight. So thinking about how do I incorporate a shorter stitch, but then in a pattern that still makes it feel like it's paint and that it's very slick and sleek. So I think knowing that my needle can really only go through about 4 at a time, building it up is going to be like stacking them on top of each other, I think is going to be how I'm going to go about solving this. Also, I don't really... I will find some of the embroidery tutorials that I've been watching and I will link that in the description. So if anybody is watching and wants to check out those channels, that's really where I learned a lot of stuff. I love YouTube. I will link those because I'll have all the same links as I go through and stream this throughout the process. So yeah, if that's something you want to learn, embroidery is kind of fun. There's all kinds of things you can do with it. So I don't know, check it out. Maybe you want to embroider your own set of shoes. this weird corner, I'm having a hard time getting the needle in a short distance.
Listen to Chill Hop with your screen locked and study uninterrupted. Try YouTube Premium free of charge.
I'm very annoyed by let's see if that's better. Sorry. YouTube switched me out of a different account, so I kept getting commercials. And we don't want commercials when we pay, not have commercials. Okay. This is the problem solving I was talking about. So it's, I'm thinking through getting as close to, hard to see it, but like getting close to this edge. I'm having a hard time because the angle which my needle is going and trying to get in and out the correct hole while following this line, I think is going to be challenging. So I think what I might end up having to do is do like an additional stitch around this to kind of fill in the gap. So I just had like, this is kind of the problem solving that I'm talking about, kind of going through and like, yeah, this is part of the creative process. Like you just kind of have to figure it out as you go and you're like, okay, this isn't working, so how do I adjust, you know? I'm just gonna have to go back through this other hole. And it's just wanting to work. And then it's trying to get one stitch. Yep, I just laugh at myself sometimes. Like I cannot get this needle in this hole. I cannot get the string to like push it through. Sometimes you have ideas and they just don't work. I mean, I know this is gonna look cool when it's done. Like, I know it's gonna look cool and I know I'll figure it out, but this right here is just like not, that is not happening for me, and it's not gonna happen. So there we go. I did it! Success! got my yarn under and I don't want it to be on. So I'm starting here on the second row. I'm really concentrating on these, sorry. I don't think the rest of the shoe will be this hard, but like right now I'm struggling with butting up against this. I mean, maybe I could have gone another direction, but this is where I'm starting, so yep. At least I'm hoping the rest of the shoe isn't. Yeah, I think definitely having to, yeah. There'll be some going back and doing some other stitches, I think, to even things out. Definitely is going to happen. See how it goes. probably ran out a while ago. Oh, hey Austin, you like it already. Yay, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. That would be the soon-to-be owner of these sneakers. So as long as he's happy, then I'm happy. It's really fun just to be able to make stuff that we want to wear and like customize our own stuff. So yeah, that's pretty cool. He's been waiting for these shoes for a while. So yeah, I think it's looking good. So basically I'm just thinking this 4-line across as we kind of go across, maybe albeit. I think I have to kind of plan that out. Maybe today is just more of like an exploratory, hey, this is how it feels to stitch into this fabric. And there is, because I know myself, there is a high likelihood that I'm probably going to stitch rip all of this out and kind of think through it and go through it again. I know I ended up doing that when I was doing a lot of crocheting. Fun story, like when I learned how to crochet, if you've ever crocheted before, like it's so difficult just to get like that very first like row, you know, like you're struggling for it, and then you make this like a little square and it's like, yeah, I did it. Well, the gal who taught me, she's like, oh great, can I see that? And then she's like, and she like pulled it all out. I was like, oh, you just ruined all my hard work. But at the same time, like it taught me to like not feel that my time is like precious, in the sense of like I can't go back if I'm not happy with something, just like rip it out and do it again. So I know myself, I know how I like to execute, the refined nature of like my craftsmanship and my working style. So I probably will rip this out and do something like practice. Like this is kind of a practice day. Oftentimes when I start like a new crochet project or anything else, I will do something, I'm like, I'm not liking this, and then I end up ripping it out until I get it just right. So just giving you that forewarning. But I am finding, so a couple things that I'm seeing here as I'm stitching is I need to probably go back and watch a couple more tutorials of like what holes to go into. I think it's hard to see it, but if I get it closer, like from afar away, you can't see it, but there's quite a gap there. And you actually can see the yellow mesh underneath, and it's probably because I'm going into the same hole too many times. So that's something I need to look into, as well as then like, how am I gonna pattern this out? In terms of the stitch, knowing that I really only can do like 4 at a time, which works out perfect because I think I mentioned like, you know, as the mesh is moving, if I do too long of a stitch, each time it flexes, like, you know, if you have this on here and it's really long and you have this satin stitch, each time it flexes, like it's going to be doing this. But if I have these much shorter sections embroidered, then it shouldn't do that. It'll kind of stay taut, but then I want like a cool pattern to go with that. So it matches kind of this spoon pattern. So, all right, it's been about an hour. I think knowing that I'm probably going to stitch rip this out, I think I might pause right now, because what I'm thinking I'm probably going to do is go back to my design and sketch out with pencil kind of where exactly I want like my stitch lines, so I can follow them and I know my exact pattern, because I'm wondering if I even want like a rib down the middle, so maybe they're lining up. Like, how do I want to point the eye with this shoe and the embroidery. Like I want it to be very conscientious. I don't just want it to look like a thrown together job or something like that. So yeah, if I go back to this image, like how do I, you know, design my stitch to flow in a way that feels like it's this paint that's like on the back of this shoe that kind of seamlessly and like in a liquid way just spreads, you know, like I want the embroidery to look like it's just liquid that's kind of spreading. So however successful in being, I don't know. There's my timer reset for another 20 minutes. But yeah, I'm just gonna turn that off for a second. I think that might be where I end today. You know, that's the concept, that's where I'm going. That's a little bit of the start. And yeah, I think I'm gonna keep working tonight and kind of through the weekend. So I will be back next week. I already put it up on my channel. I think it's Wednesday that I will be back. I can check here and check to see. Yeah, it's Wednesday. So Wednesday the 10th, I will be back streaming. I will be continuing to work on the embroidery. I'll make sure I have a photo in the bottom left-hand corner of kind of like the overall design and concept so you know what I'm going for. I will continue to add links into the description on every video in case you want to check out the Bosh like sneaker exhibit that we saw and just kind of like read through the page that still exists of that exhibition. So you can maybe link to some of the other car people that I mentioned, as well as some of the embroidery artists. So everybody that I'm kind of pulling information from. So yeah, I'll be working on that over the weekend. I'll probably get some more work done. So hopefully I'll have like a panel or so done and maybe some other areas started. So we'll get to see that. I don't think the reality of doing this one start to finish live like I did the HKS is gonna be a reality, because embroidery just, you kind of like sit and zone out. It takes a really long time. So I don't think y'all want me on here for like 40 hours straight embroidering. That might be a little boring. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I would like to end by reading the exact same quote that I started with, because it reminds me in my own practice. So I'm going to end with that, and then we'll see you next week. So, at the heart of artistic avoidance is the denial of process. We like to focus on having learned a skill or having made an artwork. This attention to final form ignores that creativity lies not in the done, but in the doing. So thank you for joining me as I was being creative and showing up for my own art practice, as in problem solving how to embroider this and having some fun. And I'll see you next week on Wednesday at the same time. Okay, have a fantastic weekend. Bye, everybody.